So-called adult in the room, it's just a scalper!
Hello, my name's Martin Jackson. I'm from a band called Confide from the UK. We've just released a brand new single called Scalper, and it's all about the housing crisis.
Beautiful, Martin. Thanks for joining us tonight, mate.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
So, as you say, Confide recently released your new song called Scalper. Like, I know it's only been probably a week, but how's the early reception been?
It's been brilliant. Probably the strongest reception so far. I've been putting out singles with Confide since 2020 when it got rebooted. And this has been, by every measure, it's been the most successful so far in its first week. So, yeah, it's really promising.
Great. So tell us a bit more about the song from a musical point of view and what you were going for with it.
So, I knew, given the subject matter of what I wanted to sing about, the housing crisis and a sort of an eternal misery that a lot of people of our generation have to live with. There's a lot of anger and resentment around this particular subject. So I knew it had to be angry. It needs to be a loud metal song. And I've not done a proper metal song in quite a while. So big influences that came in were like big chunky that had proggy tinge to them. So big Mastodon influence there, big Sixth influence. I'm a huge fan of 12-Foot Ninja and how they switch up genres between inside their songs, and Confide very much a project where every single almost completely transforms the sound, and I really admire what 12-Foot Ninja do with that, and so that was a big influence on them too. So you kind of got this ebb and flow. Often when you're dealing with a really sort of broken housing system, it feels like an absolute roller coaster. It feels like nothing's ever resolved. And so I like to feel like the song represents that, in that there's some sections that are really heavy and in your face, some that are more majestic and like hopeful, and then there's others that are sinister and like in the pit, and you know what I mean? So it feels like you can never really relax while listening to it. But at the same time, I wanted to have one thing, even though I love all this musical experimentation, I'm always really keen for all the songs to have really solid, memorable hooks. Something that people can sing along and shout along to in solidarity of a sort of subject matter like this. And so a big influence on that was probably Alter Bridge and Nothing More, which are not as many people have Nothing More. Access and incredible, right?
Like you say, mate, like it's an interesting and well done song dynamically. Like it changes timing and tempo and structure regularly to create a monster of a song. But how difficult is that to do within the song, to have all those dynamics but still have it cohesive?
In terms of like writing,
just making it come together, yeah.
It's kind of sort of become, it sounds really weird to say, it's kind of become my default when it comes to writing my own music, because that's what I want to hear. That's the kind of music I want to make. Like the previous single I did, Man Down, very, very different beast. It kind of has a bit of a reggae feel in the chorus. And then the verse has got an acoustic folk thing. There's like a jazz hip hop thing going on. And then there's a big post-rock ending with a choir at the end. So when I'm writing my own songs, I know that even when I set out to write something I think is going to be more stylistically consistent, it always comes out as like, well, this section is going to be jazz, and this one's going to be metal, and this one's going to be indie or whatever. I guess it's just, I do tend to write a lot on acoustic guitar and have just the main vocals and melody take the lead, and then sort of build the stylistic details around that. Scalper a little bit because the riffs came first, then the vocals came after that. So it was a slightly different process, but the same sort of habit of going, okay, this next sec got to. I like to think that it's not forced. Like, I don't have to say, well, this has to have a ragtime section now. It's not like Mr. Bungle, even though I love Mr. Bungle. It's hard to explain. It just kind of comes out, I guess. I'm not satisfied by sort of, at least now anyway, when I'm writing a song that I know that's going to be, that I want to be a single, I'm not really satisfied with what sort of sticking in one place for too long. I guess I'd rather be criticized for being inconsistent than for being stagnant, if that makes sense.
Now, I'm either going to sound like a genius here or I'm going to sound like an arsehole, mate. So forgive me either way. But
it's all right.
So I'm either going to. Is there a female voice in there as well, or did you just get really high pitched?
There is my friend Danny towards the end of the song. She is reading a quote over an acoustic guitar passage. So yeah, that's my friend Danny. She's a social media influencer on Instagram and stuff, and she does quite a bit of voice acting, amongst other things. And I thought, yeah, she's the perfect person to get into it because she really resonated with the message of the song. And so, yeah, she originally was just going to be me reading it out, but I think it'd be more impactful if I had another voice in there, and especially if it was a woman's voice to particularly contrast with mine. And I think she did a great job.
Yeah, that sounded good. I was hoping it was a female, and I wasn't saying you sounded like a female. I see you got a Scalper Monopoly board type thing there in the background too, mate. Is that a bit of merch that's been released with it?
Well, I've been thinking about it. I mean, it's been something, it's like sort of asset that I've been using for content around the single. So a lot of the way that I've been promoting the song is, it's all about the micro content, your Instagram reels and your TikToks and your YouTube shorts and stuff. So we're making, whereas previously I've done like an official music video for every song, and this one will eventually get official music video eventually. I've been using this in a lot of the mini videos I've been making.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also been in my photo shoots as well. Plus, it will fit in the video, and it if you like. I've been wondering if you could sell it as merchandise. I think I might get sued by the Monopoly company. But the idea is that the sort of how our sort of housing system and housing market in general isn't really a market. It's just it's a casino really, and a lot of these people are, without going into too much detail, provide as much value to our housing systems as scalpers do to the music industry. So, if that makes sense.
I like it. Now, we sort of touched on this a bit before, mate, but each Confide song features different elements and influences. Like, do you sit down and say, right, yeah, this one I'm going to write a jazz metal song, and you write to that plan, or do you start writing and then whatever comes over you goes into the song? Like,
it changes.
yeah.
So quite often I will like have sort of a vague vision for how I want the song to sound and how I want it to go about. Like I have like a sort of vague blueprint for how I want it to go about. But then quite often I do like to leave some things open so that some surprises can come out. So the song might end up going in a direction I didn't foresee. In me is one of the exciting things of the creative process and making it like this. Sometimes I don't even know where this is going to go. Like a good example is a song I released 2 years ago called UNICEF Kingdom, which was like a sort of protest song. It had a big like jangly acoustic influence there. There was like quite a bit of indie rock influence there, like stadium rock. There was some blues slide in there that I didn't expect to put in. But the ending, I had no idea what to do for the ending. And I really wanted this song to be like accessible, but in the end I ended up just putting like a disgusting metal breakdown at the end. I was like, how do I... Like, to start with, I tracked the song entirely just as acoustic, and I built the song just acoustic guitar and my voice, and then built the arrangements around that. But I still didn't have an ending for it. And that's what ended up happening. I was like, okay, well, we can bring that back, the bass line from the verse, and use that as on heavy guitars at the end, and use the hook from the verse on top of that, but shout it instead. And it really worked. And it was like, I think it brings the song to a really great close, but I had no idea that was how I was going to end the song. Right. So I like the creative process to almost be a discovery process as well. That sounds really pretentious, but it's awesome. But yeah, like with Scalper, I knew how I wanted it to sound. It was going to be angry. I'd come up with if it was really groovy. When it came to the structure of the song, I went into the sort of demo session not 100% knowing how I'm going to finish, how the different parts are all going to sit, and that to me is the most exciting part of it. I think, even though I know what the song's going to be about, I know vaguely I've got a sort of blueprint. It's really nice to take myself on a journey, man. And, I hope that makes sense anyway.
But it eventually did. It came back around and made perfect sense in the end, just like your songs.
There we go. It's all a rich tapestry. Right?
So how do you actually have you got a cutoff gauge? Like, how do you know if you've gone too far with one style in a song or not far, or you push the boundaries too much? Like, is there Is there a gauge?
Good question. It depends what I want for that song, right? Because certain songs, you know, wouldn't suit one particular stylistic deviation or not. There's a song I did a couple of years ago called Sweet Nothings, which has a sort of like Deftonesy vibe, a bit of a sort of Opeth vibe, Alice in Chains vibe, and that's the more consistent otherwise song. It's got a heavy chorus. There's like a kind of twisted hard rock riff, like a sinister verse, and that was it, really. And because the subject matter was so serious and like personal, I felt if I had deviated much further from that, it would have diluted the message of what I was singing about. Even though the song does have like stylistic deviations, they're a little bit more like congruent, if you like. It's not, as I say, Confide isn't Mr. Bungle. I'm not just leaping into like gypsy jazz out of a death metal passage, right? But if I was, there's a song I'm currently writing. I don't know if it'll ever actually come out because again, it's a bit silly. But I wrote it just for fun, and it's, again, it is a bit more like Mr. Bungle or 12 Foot Ninja, where one part I'm doing like a, just like a sort of like a status quo, like, and then it leaps into like this math rock section, and then this like Primus style bass groove. But the reason I was doing stylistic deviations as ridiculous as that is because the subject matter of what I'm singing about is ridiculous. Like the song is, working title is NIMBY Nation. So I don't know if you know what NIMBYs are, but it stands for Not in My Backyard. And it kind of relates to Harper, and you've got the people who look for pressure of local authorities or local developers not to basically put anything new ever. You know, it's worse than the housing crisis anyway. But because people's, in my view, their opinions are so ludicrous, the musical landscape has to reflect that. Like they're sort of, in my opinion, their views and their actions on the world are so incoherent and inconsistent and contradictory. We need to make a musical landscape that reflects that. So we will go from like this sort of dad rock thing and go into like this angry mathcore bit. So again, I'm using long-winded examples, but it all depends upon what I'm singing about.
So is Scalper part of a bigger album picture, mate, or is she a standalone song?
I have no album properly planned as of yet, simply because it's a huge investment. And if I do eventually release an album, I have to be confident that it's going to see a return on that. So it is basically, all the singles I've done over the last 3 years have all been standalone singles to help grow the project and grow the audience and the fan base. But what I am thinking of doing is maybe after the next 2 or 3 singles, sort of doing like a retrospectation, makes sense, like a really limited run of physical copies if you really want them. But it also means that all those songs together in an album on Spotify, on streaming services in one place, because the way some streaming services are set up, obviously you've got all these individual releases, each with one song on it. It can be a bit of a faff to go in and out and listen to each one, whereas if they're all in one place on an album, then it's a much more cohesive statement. So maybe I'll do like a retrospective sort of compilation album, and then see what things are like after that, whether it's worthwhile investing in another album release or just keep pumping out singles. It depends. The industry is so different to how it was, you know, even just 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that you have to think really carefully as to whether you're actually going to do an album. Otherwise you end up sort of what's called exhausting the creative and just putting out all that work and music all at once, blowing your load too soon, as it were. And then,
now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there we go. So what it means is, like, we live in such a what's next culture, don't we? Like, as soon as we release a thing, people are like, okay, well, that was brilliant. What's coming next? And like, if you release an album, that's an insane amount of work for not, you know, and you have to judge whether you're actually going to get a return on investment and if it's actually going to grow the band or not in the way that's going to benefit comparative to the investment made, which is why I'm focusing some on singles, because I still have like a huge catalogue of songs that I pick from to the next single. And that way I'm not just like dumping out 12 songs at once, having them all mixed, mastered and produced, and having content for all of them for maybe not as much return, or maybe the same return as just putting out one song. So I feel like that's the smart strategy for now anyway.
So is Confide an actual touring band? Like, do you just play live, or are you just a studio project?
We do play live. So even though I write, record, produce basically everything, and promote the band we do have a live band that plays. I wish we had more time to play more often. I guess I'm so busy with Chop Suey. But we did 3 festivals this year.
Oh, nice.
Which was cool. That was Mangata Festival in Nottingham, Tramlines Fringe Festival in Sheffield, and Why Not Festival up in Pikehorn. That was particularly good. So there's 3 other members. You got a chap called Dan Brown on drums. He's absolutely fantastic. Scalper is the first single to feature him on the drums. Previous singles have had like program drums.
Okay.
His one is like this is the actual take he played in the studio. I think he did a brilliant job. He also plays for Beck and Lair in Nottingham. The guitar player is called Slade. There's quite a few songs with Confide have 2 guitar parts. So great to have a second guitar there. There's also songs with just 1, so it means that I can put the guitar down and just sing and interact with the crowd as a proper frontman. Sladen, great guitar player, but he's mostly known for playing drums for a comedy metal band here in the UK called Footprints in the Custard. I don't know if you've heard of them. They play Bloodstock.
No, but I
Bloodstock a few times. And then on bass, got a guy called Jack, who I've known for a while. Played with him in a band about 8 years ago. And when I was looking for a bass player for Confide, he was one of the first people I asked. And yeah, he's been playing the songs great. He does a lot of the sort of backing screams as well. And yeah, it's been great to play shows with them. It's just about fitting it in amongst the crazy busy schedule that I've got, because I really wish I could. I'm hoping towards the end of the year, we'll do like a mini tour in the UK, like November, December time, even if it's just like a handful, like 5 to 8 shows, as well as like obviously a Nottingham, proper Nottingham gig, and sort of rally the troops, as it were. I would love to do more touring. It's just a case of finding the time amongst everything else that I'm doing.
Right, well, do you actually live in Nottingham? You've said Nottingham a few times.
Yeah, yes, Nottingham.
I've got a friend who lives in Chowton. That's not too far from Nottingham, eh?
Oh no, it's actually very close to me, because I live in a place called Beeston, which is in Broxtowe, which is the same borough as Towton. So literally, I can hop on a bus and be in Towton in 15 minutes.
Right, yeah, because I stayed there last time I was over, in beautiful area. Lovely.
Oh yeah, it's lovely.
Hmm.
You're especially close to Attenborough Nature Reserve there, which is a really, really nice place to go for a walk. And there's a cute little tea room and lots of lovely birds you can go watch if you're in that mood.
I'll let him know. Now, before we let you go, brother, I've started up 3 separate Spotify playlists based on songs from artists that we speak to. So using your own songs, give me a song for a playlist to get the party started. 1 playlist get the party started. 1 to save your marriage. And 1 that could potentially end your marriage.
Oh, okay. A song to get the party started.
Yep.
So you'd probably choose Unashamed, which is quite an old song, 2016, but it's quite a grooving, funky track. Lots of like sex positivity in that one. So that's probably to get the party started. A song called Unashamed.
Huh?
A song to save your marriage.
Yeah,
will probably be Man Down. And that's about rating ourselves from like toxic gender stereotypes and being truest selves. I wrote that one not long before I went into therapy. So
what was that one called again? Sorry, I lost you there. What was that one called?
Oh, sorry, that one's called Man Down.
Man Down, right? Yeah, yep.
And I feel like a lot of relationship problems could be solved by like shaking off a lot of these toxic stereotypes we built around gender. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a song to end your marriage.
While we're saving it, we may as well end it as well.
Yeah. Depends, if you wanted to or not. If you wanted to end it or not.
Well, that's
song to end. Song to end your marriage. Let me think. I reckon. We should go for Sweet Nothings on that one. I'm gonna put a positive spin on this, because Sweet Nothings is when it's all about realizing you've been gaslit, right? And so maybe you're leaving the relationship for your own mental health. There we go.
Very.
So Unashamed, Man Down, and Sweet Nothings.
Beautiful. All right, man. Well, thanks very much for your time tonight, mate. Scalper is out now, and she's an absolute beast of a song. But anyone unfamiliar with Confide, that's without Y, CONFYDE. Check out the back catalogue, because it's an absolute cracker of a band. So thanks for your time, brother.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me, Chris. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
It is. Bye.
That's so out in the room, it's just a scalper! Scalper! The market has spoken and your lives are forfeit. I don't care how hard you think it works. That is some none to fake you deserve to capture every place that we could call home. Hold it to ransom and call it freedom. What value could you ever offer me when the choice to engage with you is not voluntary? Our survival, it is fueled by resentment. You probably think I'm singing about the government. The winter of our non-consent. The generations that live to rent. All the coins we scrape together. That so-called adult in the room is just a scalper. Scalper! Tell me about your risk. Everything you do is passive. Your only liability is to join us again in drudgery. Tell me about your risk. Everything you do is passive. If you could, you charge a fee for the very fucking air we breathe. The market has spoken and your lives are forfeit. I know you've not done a lick of work when you possess the roof over our heads. We will never have a place that we can call our own. You're gouging the price. Your heart is like
As
ice.
soon as the land of any country has all become private property, the landlords, like all other men, love to reap where they never sowed and demand a rent even for its natural produce.
Your investment is outrageous, clear to see. Desperation leads to the point that we That's how we say enough is enough. Don't think you want to call this bluff. You are a parasite that creates nothing. You are a disease that's propagating.